Hi guys, Marcia here with Hichibi Styles, and I'm here with my summer Know Me pattern, ME2126. This is a bold, flirty, fun sundress that comes in two different lengths. Your view A is your shorter length, and your view B is going to be your longer length. It has pockets and an open back, big bold ruffles on the shoulder, and a zip in the back. I think this is a great pattern to make and a great dress to have for the summer. So if you're ready to sew, grab your pattern and your materials and let's get started. So for this sew along, I will be doing view A, which is the shorter version. Make sure you refer to your instructions for pattern markings and cut-in layouts. And once you grab your materials, let's go ahead and get started. So you should have 4 front bodice pieces. 2 will be your main pieces and 2 will be your lining. I went ahead and cut my lining out of the same material, but you can also use a lighter fabric or contrasting fabric if you would like. So we're going to put the lining aside, and I'm going to grab my main pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch the dart in the front of the bodice by matching up the dots and pinning it. And then I will take it to the machine and give it a stitch. That's one dart. You can also press this down if you like. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch it first, and then I will press it afterwards. Okay, so I completed my darts and I went ahead and pressed them down. If you haven't already, go ahead and do the same to your lining for your upper bodice pieces. And we're going to set them aside and we're going to grab our straps. First, you're going to take piece 3. This is the shoulder strap. There should be 2 pieces here. And with right sides together, we're going to fold each shoulder strap in half like this, lengthwise. I'm going to go ahead and pin it. And you'll take it to the machine and stitch a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're going to leave the ends open. Do that for both of your straps. Okay, so once you finish stitching your straps, you want to go ahead and take your turning tool and turn straps right side out. Once you have them turned right side out, go ahead and take them to your pressing board and give them a press. Okay, so now we're going to take our straps and we're going to take our bodice front, and we are going to take each strap and on the outside pin one shoulder strap to each bodice front, matching the symbols. So I'm going to put my strap right there and pin it in between those 2 dots, or actually I'll use my clips and clip it between those 2 dots, matching up the raw edges. Do that for both sides. Now we're going to take it to the machine and we'll baste them to the front bodice. So let's take your front pieces, the main pieces, and we're going to take our back pieces and we're going to stitch the bodice to the bodice front at the sides with raw edges matching, notches matching, and right sides facing. Go ahead and clip those together. That's one side, and then you're going to clip your other side together. And I'm going to take these pieces to the machine and stitch them. Okay, so I went ahead and I pressed the seam to the back bodice and the front bodice open. I did that on both sides, and I also did it to the lining pieces. I sewed the lining pieces for my back bodice and front bodice together, just as I did with the front pieces, and pressed the seam open. So now we're just going to set those aside, and we're going to grab our back strap. And we're going to stitch this one up the same way we did with our shoulder strap. And we're going to use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance for this one. And we're going to close up the pointed end and leave the straight edge open. So go ahead and take your strap, fold it in half lengthwise. I think this time I'll give it a clip. Clip it together with raw edges facing. All right, I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch the seam 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So here are my back straps. I went ahead and turned them right side out and I pressed them with the iron. Now we're going to grab our front and back bodice, our main fabric, and we are going to place one back strap to each bodice back, matching the symbols. Okay, now you should have both straps connected to your front and back bodice, the main sections, and we're going to set them aside and we're going to grab piece 7. This is going to be your skirt front. First we're going to pin the sections together and then we'll take it to the machine and stitch it. You're going to match up that notch, the front notches, and the raw edges. And I'm going to clip it together. Like so. And then we'll take it to the machine and stitch from the dot to the lower end of the skirt. Okay, so I went ahead and finished the edges of my seam on my front skirt, and I pressed the seam open. So let's go ahead and turn it to the front. And we're going to take piece 9, and you should have cut 2 fabric and 2 lining pieces. We're actually going to take the lining pieces here. And I cut my lining for my pocket out of a different cotton fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to pin one pocket to the skirt front at each side, matching up the notches and the dots. And then we'll take it to the machine, stitch it, and then we'll press the seams toward the pockets. Okay, so we have our pocket linings attached to our front skirt, and those pockets are pressed out with the seam allowance pressed up against the pockets. So we're just going to put this aside and grab piece number 8, which is our back. Okay, so here is our back skirt. We are going to put right sides together and stitch. Well, we're going to pin it first. We're going to pin and stitch the center back seam together. Now I'm going to stop about 1 inch below the notch here, and that is where we are going to stop stitching. This is where our zipper will stop. So we're going to leave open 1 inch under the notch on the back, center back seam. So take it to your machine and go ahead and stitch. Okay, so I'm going to start stitching about 1 inch down from that notch. All right, and don't forget the back stitch. Okay, so I went ahead and finished my seam and pressed it open just like I did with the front skirt. Now, let's turn it to the right side. We're going to apply our main pockets to the sides of the skirt with the right sides together. Notches matching up and dots matching up. We're going to pin or clip the pocket to the skirt. On both sides. And then we'll take this to the machine, and just like the front side, we're going to use a 1/4 inch of a seam allowance and sew all the way from the top of the pocket to the bottom of the pocket on both sides of the skirt. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed my pockets out, pressing the seam against the pocket. Now we're going to take the front, and with right sides facing, we are going to match up our pockets, our raw edges, notches and dots, and we are going to clip or pin the front skirt to the back skirt. at the sides and pockets. Making sure you line up those pocket seams. Right. I like to make sure my seams are lined up. Okay, so when we take it to the machine, you're going to do this for both sides. When you take it to the machine, we're going to stitch from the top edge, leaving open between the dots, and we're going to move around the pocket, stitching the pocket together and stitching the seam down to the bottom hem. Do that for both sides of your skirt. Okay, so I went ahead and I finished off my pocket seam, and we're actually gonna go ahead and clip the back seam allowance above and below the pockets. Just the back seam allowance. Don't clip through the stitching. You want to clip just to the stitching. Make sure you do not clip through the stitching. And then we're going to press our pocket to the front and press the seam open. We're going to do that for both sides. Okay. All right, so I'm cutting the back seam just to the stitching. Remember, do not cut through the stitching. And then we're going to press these pockets to the front and press the seam open. Okay, so now we're going to add our gathering stitches. We're going to gather the upper edge of the skirt between the notches on the back and center front seam line. Make sure you increase the length of your stitch. I increased mine up to 5, and let's begin. I'm going to stop at the seams and at the middle seam also, so that I can have a little bit more leverage with my gathering stitches. Sometimes when you go too long, it's hard to pull them correctly, so we're just going to stop and start. So we'll have 4 gathering stitches to pull. Okay, we're stopping in the center. And then we're starting back in the center on the other side. once you finish your first gathering stitches, go ahead and go back and do your second set of gathering stitches. Okay, so once you get your gathering stitches in, you're going to take your upper bodice pieces and we are going to match the bodice pieces to the top of the skirt with right sides together. We're going to pin the bodice sections to the upper edges, matching the dots and the notches and lining up the raw edges. Go ahead and match the seams together. And then after we match the seams, notches, and the dots, we will gather the gathering stitches so that they line up. Now I'm going to take the back section and I'm going to gather those stitches to even up those edges. Actually, start over here. Okay, so once those edges are lined up, go ahead and pin them like we did the first section. All right, so we have one side gathered and ready to stitch. I'm gonna go ahead and attach the other side of the bodice, and then we'll take it to the machine and stitch the pieces together. Okay, now that we have the upper bodice connected to the skirt, we're going to go ahead and install our zipper. I went ahead and gave the seam a press. I pressed it up real nicely, and you're going to need a 10-inch invisible zipper for this. Mine is a little bit longer, but I usually just cut mine off where I need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our invisible zipper foot to attach our zipper. But we want to go ahead and unzip the zipper, and with right sides facing, we are going to place the zipper tape, match the tape, the smooth edge up, and I'm going to clip You want to get that stopper about 3/8 from the edge. And I'm going to go ahead and clip it to the edge. You're going to have the coils along the seam line at the bottom here. And we are going to take it to the machine, and with our invisible zipper, we're going to stitch it close to the zipper teeth. Let's go ahead and change out our sewing foot. I am going to release this down. Okay, so we're going to stitch that zipper along the zipper foot, the zipper teeth, and I'm going to straighten up right here. Alright, so we got the line, and we're going to stop right before that notch. Okay, so we have the right side of the zipper in. We're going to pin that remaining side, which is your left side. And I've marked where my seam is on the other side so that I can match the seams up nicely. And I'm just going to go ahead and pin that in first, matching up my seams and bringing it in. A minute. There we go. And I'm actually just going to pin that. And all right. Alrighty, just pin it from the top. Alright, so I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch it close to the zipper teeth the same way I did the right side. Alright, so once you have attached your left side of the zipper, you can go ahead and give it a press as I did here. And I also went ahead, and if your zipper is longer, you can go ahead and cut it off and secure it with a zigzag stitch like I did. Now we're going to go ahead and finish off this strap. If you have not already attached the shoulder strap to the back area, you're going to want to go ahead and match up those dots and baste it, because we're going to get ready to attach our lining, and we're going to make sure that that strap is secure and not dangling freely. So I'm going to go ahead and baste this real quick, and then we'll grab our lining. Okay, so go ahead and grab your lining, which, as you have been going along, would have already have put together. The instructions have you putting it together now, but I like to do my lining as I go, so I went ahead and did it when I did the top bodice. Alrighty, make sure your zipper is unzipped. And with right side spacing, we are going to attach our lining to our bodice. Make sure your back straps and your shoulder straps are down and not in the way. Go ahead and pin the shoulder strap and back strap area. We're gonna match up any notches or dots. Got the wrong piece there. Here we go. Alrighty. And here. Okay, and match up that dot in the front. I'm actually going to use a pin for that. That's going to be my starting point. Okay, so that I can get my understitching well, I am going to start with this front bodice. With the neckline, I'm going to stitch from dot to dot, and then I'm going to do the understitching for that V neckline first before I go ahead and stitch the underarm. So I went ahead and finished up the neckline, so I'm going to go ahead and understitch it, folding that over and sewing the seam onto the lining. Just going to do it right here. Now that that part is done, I'm fold it back over, and I'm gonna go ahead and stitch the area across the strap. So now we're going to do the underarm, and I'm going to stitch from the top of the back strap, and then go across the seam of the underarm and to the front strap. And after I do that, I'll understitch it. And drop it near the dot. Make sure you don't get your strap caught in the seam. All right, I'm going to trim this top just a bit around the corner. And then go ahead and do the understitching for the underarm. Actually, you can probably need to do a couple of clips in the curve so that it lays nicely. And I'm also going to trim it just a bit. It's a quite large seam there. Alright, so after you have attached your lining and folded up the hem to the lining, you can go ahead and either slip stitch this, or what I'm going to do is stitch in the ditch at my machine. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so our inner lining has been attached and our hem is done. We're going to actually set the dress aside and start on our ruffle. Okay, so we're going to grab our ruffle. You should have cut 2 of these pieces, and you should have 2 pieces of elastic. Go ahead and measure those out based on the elastic guide that's provided with the pattern, and make sure you put your markings on them. We're going to put that aside for right now. What we're going to do first is go ahead and do the hem on the edges of our ruffles. So we're just going to use a 1/4 turnover hem and then turn over again. So I'm going to go ahead and use my iron to turn over my hems on my ruffle, and then I'll take it to the machine and I'll stitch them down. Okay, so once you have turned over the edges of your ruffles, go ahead and grab your elastic, and we are going to add the elastic to the ruffle through the middle where you've placed your dots. So you're going to want it on the wrong side up. You're going to take your elastic, and there should be 3 dots. Match the middle one up with the middle dot on your fabric. And I'm going to pin it, and then there is another dot on each side, and you're going to go ahead and match those up also. Now when we go to sew this on, we're going to pull it taut like this as we stitch. And then the ends are gonna just go down to the end there. So now we're just going to take this to the machine, and we're going to stitch down the middle of that elastic as we pull the elastic taut like this. And you can use a zigzag stitch. I'm going to use a small zigzag stitch, or you can use a straight stitch. Okay, so this is what your ruffle will look like once you put the elastic in. So we're going to fold it over with right sides together and pin those raw edges together or clip. And I'm just going to take it to the machine and stitch 5/8 of an inch seam allowance right there. Alright, so I went ahead and finished that edge off with the serger. And so you want to go ahead and grab your dress, and on the upper bodice and shoulder strap you're going to attach this ruffle. So with the underarm seam, you're going to match up the underarm seam with the ruffle, and we're just going to pin it right under the arm. And I like to pin mine close to the edge. And then you're just going to work your way around and pin that ruffle around the underarm and shoulder strap. Then we get to the strap, you make sure that the elastic is in the middle when you pin. Alright, so we're pinning it all the way around. There's no need to stretch, it's already ruffled. Alright, so once you get the ruffle attached, you're going to take it to the machine and you're going to stitch right down the middle through the elastic ruffle and the actual dress, and do a straight stitch to attach your ruffle to your bodice and shoulder strap. Okay, so once you finish the ruffle, it's going to look like this. And go ahead and do both sides. And after you do that, we're going to finish it off with a narrow hem to the skirt. Your dress is complete. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And for more styling and sewing tips, follow me on Instagram at KichiBStyles. Peace.